What's happening with the 2024 pay award? What are the armed forces doing about the increase to the minimum income requirement? And why can't we go back to having an immediate pension like the 75 scheme? The answers to these and more in this episode. Hey everyone, and welcome to The Savvy Squaddy. In this video, I sit down with one of the team who works on pay and pension policy, and I ask him the top questions many of you submitted. Let's get straight into it. James, thank you for, again, giving me your time to answer some questions on pay and pensions. And first, let's hop into pay. We're in April as we record this, and we haven't heard anything about the Armed Forces pay review. Can we expect something later this year?
Yeah, so the government has asked the Armed Forces Pay Review Body to submit their report by the end of May this year. And that is alongside all of the other public sector pay review bodies. And then once they receive the report, they'll consider the recommendations before deciding on what the pay award will be. That announcement, government always likes to do alongside all the other public sector departments. So the Armed Forces one won't be announced for April 24. We don't have an exact date. We anticipate it will be before the summer parliamentary recess, and that starts on the 23rd of July. So as last year, announced in July, backdated to April, and individuals should see it in their August pay packet. And this is a government decision to announce them all together. And as you will have seen, the other government departments, it takes a bit longer sometimes.
Yeah, and again, and that's like public sector wide. Again, it's not in isolation of the armed forces.
No, they like to do all the public sectors at the same time.
That's cool.
So we have to effectively wait for everyone else as well.
I wonder actually if you could touch on this month in April, the national living wage for the most junior cohorts is actually, so they're going to see their salary increase to kind of try and keep track with the national living wage. Are you able to clarify on that?
Yeah, there was, and that was announced. So as at the 1st of April, all those on the below the minimum wage, I think that's like OR2, 1, 2 and 3, those very junior private soldiers, their wages are being increased, so they will be paid the national living wage. That's gone up to £11.44 an hour. There's a calculation in there to do the number of hours they work, but those numbers will mean they are paid the national living wage. So what will happen? That's going up as of the 1st of April. If the Armed Forces Pay Review Body announcement puts them above that, they will get the additional as well.
Okay, so
they've been brought up in line immediately, be in line with the national living wage from the 1st of April. If then in July the award takes them above that, they will get the additional as well.
Okay, so that's good. I can't imagine there'd be much complaints there.
No, it's good news, and we've been able to push this through the Treasury early, so it started from the 1st of April, despite the fact the pay award won't be announced until later in the year. That's really positive news for our most junior soldiers.
Yeah, 100%. And then with pay, obviously we have like our core pay, our trade supplement pay, and then we have X Factor. Regular personnel, that's X Factor is 14.5%, but MPGS is 5%. Why is that?
Yes. So first of all, I'll just explain quickly about X Factor and what it's for, and then I'll get on to why the MPGS get 5%. X Factor is an additional pensionable remuneration, and it recognises the demands of service life. So it's paid on top of our base pay, as you said, and that makes up the annual salary total. So X Factor, it should be noted, is not intended to compensate for the particular circumstances personnel may face at one time, so just for one assignment. It reflects those advantages and disadvantages across their whole career. How this is calculated? The rate is informed by comparing the experience of service and civilian life against 12 X Factor components and applying a judgment to the level of X Factor. So these components are used to assess civilian in the private sector as well. So some elements have changed over the years and they get slightly altered, but the key components for the military, such as turbulence, danger and separation, have remained. And so the MPGS, along with our part-time reservists and those serving in either limited commitment or home commitment FTRS positions, receive a lower rate of X Factor because there's a difference balance between the positive and negative factors of service life. So, for example, MPGS are subject to less turbulence and separation than their regular counterparts because they serve in a fixed location and they are not subject to that operational churn. So they don't get deployed overseas for 6 months at a time, etc., etc. So the MPGS, along with our part-time reservists, because they've got less turbulence, they get their rate of X Factor is reduced.
So one of the questions we had was asking if there's anything being done to recognise like the more technical aspects of each trade.
There are both bespoke pay spines for specialist trades, and then there's also the trade supplements for the other ranks. So lots of our technical trades are already paid at the higher levels. And so these trade supplement placements are reviewed every 5 years through the Joint Service Job Evaluation Team process. So the way we reward the technical aspects at the moment is either through a bespoke pay spine or through trade supplements. Just one thing that's ongoing at the moment, you've heard of the Haythorne Freight Review?
Yes, yeah.
One of the options that's being considered there, along with a whole raft of other measures, is skills-based pay. We don't know what shape that'll take, but the big concept is we remunerate the skills we need as defence. So we come up with a pay that remunerates those specialist skills and those technical aspects that you mentioned. And that's just one of the things that's being reviewed at the moment. More to follow on that over the next few years as we get into it.
You kind of mentioned like the bespoke pay spines and like specialist pays and all that. So like MODOs or medical officers, dental officers, when they're not actually, if they're in staff jobs, why do they retain that specialist pay?
Right, yeah. Similar also is to the trade supplement pay when they're out of trade. So a very similar question. So under pay 16, the rank was the biggest influence on pay. So we've got this pay structure where there's 4 trade supplements and there's these bespoke pay spines for like medical and dental officers, air crew, divers, etc. So both the supplements and the bespoke pay spines are paid on a through career basis, looking at the entire service person's career. So occasionally personnel are assigned to roles where they're out of trade. So a lot of other ranks in TSPs, this is training establishments when they go to be section commanders, to sergeants, etc. And then for those in specialist pay spines, when they go into staff jobs, they keep it because it's through career and they're only taking a small time out. So it's based through career because they sort of dip in and out of their trade. And also quite often for the medical and dental officers, yes, they may be at a staff job, but they will still be looking at clinical stuff and how we shape our policies. So they still need that medical experience. So that's why they retain that specialist pay. So we just need to look at the overall pay journey of an individual in their time.
Yeah, no, that's I think that was well explained because, again, the example you give of like, someone going to a training establishment, I'm pretty sure they would not be very happy to lose their trade supplement pay because they weren't doing their trade. And that would be the same, obviously, for these people in the bespoke pay spines as well.
Yeah, and again, so that's why in a training environment, you may get people being paid on different TSPs doing the same job. And again, that's just the way the pay is structured. That assures the wider pay structure. Otherwise, you start creating extra trade groups for trainers, for example, and then it's less attractive for those in the technical trades because they might take a pay cut. So you stay in your trade because it's through life and it's just 2 or 3 years in the training environment. That's where you retain your TSP.
We'll move on to the final question that we've got on pay. And that's to do with like the minimum income requirement. And that's set to increase. Well, it's already increased a bit now, but by 2025 or sometime in 2025, it's set to increase to £38,700. And this is going to be a bit of a barrier of entry, obviously, to like foreign and commonwealth individuals who want to join the forces. Has the MOD done anything? Is there an exemption for them so they get, so they're able to bring their family over? Or are they going to have to earn that £38,000, which at the moment is sort of like top tier corporal, which obviously would take like 8 to 10 years to get to?
Yeah, good question. But again, there's more good news in this space. So it was announced at the end of March this year, and the minimum income requirement to sponsor families to enter, stay or settle in the UK is going to be lowered for service personnel. So from the 11th of April this year, that reduced threshold will align with the salary of a service person once they complete basic training. So rather than that increased minimum income requirement for other citizens. So this recognises the vital contribution that service personnel, including those from the Commonwealth and from Nepal, it recognises the contribution they have in defending the nation. It aligns with the Armed Forces Covenant. They're really good news. That will be at the lowest level. So OR21 when people come out of basic training.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely good news. And I think a lot of people had a lot of questions about it. People sending me messages and they'll be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, the Home Office recognised that in conversation with the MOD. And it is really good news.
Yeah, very good news. So that was the last question on pay. So if we'll just hop straight into pensions. And the first one up is there any sort of scope with adding a pension contribution section to the pay slip so people can really understand the value of the Armed Forces pension?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's been raised on a few occasions. So how to understand the value of the pension was a recommendation from the Haythorne Freight Review. And so the MOD are currently planning focus groups across tri-service personnel, and we're trying to understand what pensions mean to them. We want to hear about the language they respond to, how they prefer to engage with pensions, and what turns them off. So what they don't listen to or look at. And the feedback from these meetings is being used to develop options on how to convey that pension information. Pay slips is just one of a number of options we've looked at. Of course, this would rely on people actually reading their pay slips properly. but it is an option that's being looked at. And as with all things, we've just got to look at how we do that in JPA, the sort of the technical solution as well. But it is an option that we are looking at.
So as a side note, it's something that was shown to me actually was on JPA, you can go through like my dashboard and then you can actually see like the pay costs. And then there's a number that shows you how much like has been contributed to your pension that month. That's a very handy feature. I'm trying to be showing a lot of people that, but it's like really tucked away in JPA.
Yeah. And again, it's much easier for the new pension scheme, AFPS 15, because it's 1/47th your pensionable earnings. It becomes slightly more difficult for personnel with service in the legacy schemes as well, so 75 and 05, because they're based on either your final rank or your final salary. The calculation is slightly more difficult for those. You can show the 15 contribution, and that's relatively straightforward, which I think is what JPA does.
Yeah.
But the other ones require a bit more calculation. So it's getting that balance between showing people accurate information and then making the payslip really long with a whole list of caveats that explain what the numbers mean.
Yeah, of course. The benefit information statement is something we get every year around the time of our birthday. That's moving to online now, is it?
Yes. So from November 2023, when an individual reaches their birthday, so you would normally receive the benefit information statement through the post. That is now available on JPA. Looks the same as the one you got through the post. It's just available online now, and that will stay on there and be available till your next birthday when it will be updated.
Lovely. And so people shouldn't expect to receive that in the post anymore if they have their birthday after November 23.
There's a few individuals who won't have access to JPA who can call the JPAC and request it, and it will still be posted out.
Okay.
But anyone with access to JPA, regular access to JPA, can get it on there. And there's just, for awareness, we are looking at the benefit information statement this year. Now it's been digitized. To look if we can redesign it, make it a really useful tool. And I said there was other options to look at how we convey the value of pension information. And this is another one of the tools we're looking at changing. You might in the future see a slightly different format for the benefit information statement. But that is all work in progress at the moment.
And that can be found through the self-service section of JPA under like I think it's my pay, isn't it?
Yes.
Great.
I think it's my pay. I'd have to check that one.
Yeah, I'll put something on screen if it is that. This next one is a question I get a lot. How rigid are the EDP eligibility criteria?
Yep, so the two early departure points, so 18 years and age 40 for 05 and 20 years service and age 40 for 15 are rigid. So they're written basically into pension legislation, so they're non-negotiable. The key with the early departure point is for individuals to check carefully their service record before they think about submitting their notice to terminate, as they need to ensure that it covers all their relevant service. So, for example, if they've got a period of non-reclamable service, and the best example of this is maternity leave, they need to check that they have either 18 or 20 years service with that included, and their desk officer can help out with that. Most individuals should have the opportunity to get to this point if they either get to a VENG full or for officers an intermediate regular commission. That should take you out to over 20 years service. And if you think these individuals are even soldiers when they start younger, a 24-year VENG contract will take, even if they start at 16 at Harrogate, will take them to 40 years of age. The key is to get people to check their record and see if there is any non-reclamable service in there before they do the notice to terminate.
You mentioned maternity leave. Is that just extended maternity leave? So is the 9?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the additional after the 9 months.
Yeah, so that's down as non-reclamable service. Other non-reclamable service might be any time spent AWOL or any time if you were unfortunate enough to go to Colchester. So stuff like that also counts as non-reclamable service.
The key takeaway would be for people just to, before they sign off, to check to make sure they're entitled to the EDP. So another one about EDP. Why can't like the 05 and the 15? Why can't they just go back to like having an immediate pension upon in payment when leaving? Why do we have the EDP?
It's important to note that the 05 scheme and the 15 scheme still allow individuals to receive an immediate pension if they remain into service until what is called the normal pension age. So this is 55 for AFPS 05 and 60 for AFPS 15. It's not possible to pay a pension before age 55. And that follows some changes to the Finance Act in 2004. And that's what also led to some of the changes in the 75 scheme. So that was a government finance act that was put in place that we had to respond to. So both schemes offer the early departure payment, as you said, and this is paid if an individual has reached 40 years of age and has served either 18 years in the AFPS 05 or 20 years in AFPS 15. And this EDP is paid to compensate for the fact that a full career to normal pension age and then that immediate pension is beyond and not available to majority of personnel. So it's to compensate for that. And so the EDP is a benefit which in the public sector is unique to the armed forces.
So it was changed to like a legal framework, so completely out of control of like the armed forces. Because I think many people think it's, when they hear the pension changes, they think the armed forces did it and it's all their fault. But actually, like you mentioned, it was because there was a change in the law that then prevented pensions being paid out immediately before a certain age.
Yeah, the Finance Act in 2004 said that you could not receive a pension before age 55. So that's why we had to change at that point. And that was also when the 75 scheme changed to 05 scheme, that was also an opportunity to modernise the scheme. So the 75 scheme was quite restrictive about a spouse, for example. 05 scheme gives a bit more latitude for partners. The 75-05 change was to modernise some of the pension to bring it up to date with society and where we were.
Yeah.
And also to incorporate changes to the Finance Act where we were unable to pay a pension before age 55.
Yeah, I think that whole Finance Act is key context because I certainly wasn't aware of that either. And it will highlight to people that, this is not the MOD trying to screw you over. This is like they're following the law. That was dictated by government.
Yes, and also, interestingly, the costs, the actuarial costs, so the cost that the Government Actuaries Department works out was neutral for the change from 75 to 05. It just rearranged the best way to put it is it just rearranged some of the benefits. So it increased death in service, for example.
Yeah.
Just brought it into modernised it. It's probably a good term to use.
We've got one more question. Again, it's kind of linked to the 75. And this person's asking, when they leave and they get their 75 pension, is that linked to their final rank in service or when they moved from the 75 scheme?
So the majority of cases, it will be their final rank in service. So that final rank for 75 and the final salary link remain for both the Armed Forces Pension 75 and 05. Again, just one to watch here. If you had a break in service of over 5 years, you need to check your circumstances carefully. But the pension that's paid out, the payment that's paid out for 75 or 05 is based on final pensionable pay or rank in the last day of service. So not on the day you transferred to AFPS 15. So for example, if on the 1st of April 2022, when everyone moved on to the Armed Forces Pension Scheme 15, you were a corporal and you finished your career as a WO1, your service in the legacy scheme, so either 75 or 05, will be calculated on either your final rank as a WO1 or your salary, which is the best 365 days in the last 3 years. So that link still remains. It's not when you moved on to the 15 scheme. So hopefully that will allay any fears there.
Thanks again to James for taking the time to answer those questions. Every day is a learning day, and finding out about the Finance Act 2004 and how that has affected pensions is key context which I think many people, including myself, are missing. It really isn't just a simple case of scrapping the early departure payment and reverting back to an immediate pension. And if you're thinking of signing off or you're coming to the end of your commitment, make sure to check that you don't just fall short of some of the benefits that could be on the table. If you notice it early, then there are potential solutions to get you over that line, but you need to take some ownership and responsibility and not expect someone else to notice for you. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of these topics and the added context has helped you understand the why behind certain methodology. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below and any further questions you may have. They could be in a future episode. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you just saw, please hit the subscribe button up there. And if you want to see some more videos, click over there. See you soon.